And if you could be sure to mute everyone other than the presenters, that way we don't have any background noise, that would be great. All right, it looks like it is straight up 6 o'clock. I would like to officially call this meeting to order. If you all would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. All right, so as I fix my camera to make it look like I'm here. I see my friends here. I am so excited that you guys are going to be able to present to us tonight. So I am going to turn it over to Patrick. You can, whoever wants to start on there, and if you could introduce yourself to our council and then go into your presentation, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Jones. So good to see you. Good to see so many familiar faces. My name is Patrick Boyan. I am the mayor of the city of College Park, for those of you who I haven't met before. And I am proud to be here this evening to present to you about the National League of Cities, an organization that I have been proud to be part of almost as long as the 16 years that I've been, or 14 years rather. I'm working on the getting up to 16 years that I've been in local elected government. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got engaged and the benefits that I've found from the National League of Cities during the time that I have been involved with it. First I want to say, well, and then I'm going to turn it over to Timothy Evans, who's from the National League of Cities staff, and he's going to go through a presentation that talks more about the benefits that you get from membership with the National League of Cities. And I want to say, first of all, that we are very lucky and privileged to be located where we are in the country, because we are right in we are next door neighbors with the National League of Cities. And because of that, that really gives us a benefit that many people who are involved with the league aren't able to take advantage of. Particularly, we can go visit the National League of Cities and participate in many of the things that the National League of Cities does right in Washington, D.C., without even having to travel very far. And when the way that I first got involved with the National League of Cities was only a couple years in. Sorry about that. My phone may have interrupted my conversation there for a bit. Let me make sure that doesn't happen again. A couple of years after I became a city council member in College Park, I went to the Congressional Cities Conference, which is the annual conference that happens in Washington, D.C. every March with the National League of Cities, where people from all over the country come together, local elected officials, other municipal officials come together to share ideas, to share resources, and to go to the Hill and advocate on behalf of cities and towns and villages from around the country. And why that's so great for us is that we get to compile our voices so that local governments are heard from all over the country, and it really elevates our voices so that members of Congress hear us. And the National League of Cities has a real presence in Congress because we are able to do that, because they represent us, and we can go with them and work together to advocate for our interests. This has been no more critical in all my time in the local elected office than it has been over the past year and a half now during the COVID-19 pandemic, where the National League of Cities has been up on the Hill fighting to make sure that we have the resources, even as we haven't been able to be necessarily in Washington, D.C. in person. The National League of Cities has been there making sure that we get the resources that we need to get through this pandemic, that we have gotten federal resources from the CARES Act that has gone to many local governments, and now most recently the American Rescue Plan. For us in College Park, I mean, we took a hit of about upwards of $2 or $3 million in revenue from the pandemic, and without the American Rescue Plan, we would not be able to. We would have to have made significant cuts to the services that we provide for our residents. So it is really thanks to the National League of Cities that they were up talking about the impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic has had in local government, and making sure that those needs are heard, and that when Congress is putting together the American Rescue Plan, that they understood about the need to make sure that local governments, that every local government, even smaller towns and villages, were included in that package. So I am going to turn. I could talk for an hour about all the benefits that I've gotten from the National League of Cities over the time that I've been on board. I served in many different capacities with the National League of Cities as a board member for 5 years, as chair of one of their policy committees on transportation and infrastructure, helping make sure that our interests as a city, our needs as a city in infrastructure investment, whether it's investment assistance with water investment, stormwater, transportation, our roads, our transit, our bike trails, that those are represented. I've also been part of the University Communities Council, and Timothy will talk more about. There are different councils that represent different types of communities in the National League of Cities, and connect you with people from all over the country who are facing similar challenges that you are in your community, and also been part of the REAL Council, the Race, Equity, and Leadership Council, which has really helped us in College Park to be proactive and think about how to make sure that we are treating everybody equally within College Park based on race and ethnicity. So I'm gonna let's say not steal any of his thunder. I'm gonna turn it over to Timothy Evans to go through more specifically what the benefits of membership of the National League of Cities are.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. Thank y'all very much. The good thing is this, he's already said mostly everything. So I'm going to keep this extremely short, sweet, and to the point. For us, I think a couple of things I just want to kind of note for you guys as just a high level space. As the organization, as the National League of Cities, we represent, cities, towns, villages, boroughs, hamlets, you name it. But then on top of that, within our organization, just a little note for you all. We have 31 municipalities in the state of Maryland that are a part of the National League of Cities, direct members. And of those, our smallest is actually North Brentwood at 517 in population. So the first thing I want to just make sure is very clear. We actually have a lot more small municipalities in general than we do from large municipalities. And I want to make that also very clear. So we have about 2,500 municipalities, now actually 2,600 municipalities that are a part of our organization that extend from shore to shore. And the part of that is our opportunity to be able to pull strength together. There's a saying that I heard from somebody a little while ago, spider webs tie up lions. And as we know, as municipalities, you as a municipality may have strength within yourself and within your state and even within your region. But as you get larger and deal with the federal government and even sometimes state entities, right, you leverage the state league as a group to be able to support the initiatives that are important to you locally. You leverage the National League of Cities and other organizations to be able to work collaboratively to deal with issues that are important to municipalities across the United States. And so as an organization, we really try to put ourselves into 3 different buckets, right? So 1, we want to think about how we can support you locally. What are those resources that you can use that actually supplement the work that the Maryland Municipal League does, and Scott and his team do at the Maryland Municipal League. On top of that, yes, we focus on federal policy. And that's because a long time ago, back when we were first founded in the 1920s, the state leagues came together to be able to create us, and they wanted us to focus at the federal level while they focused at the state level. And that's why we do what we do, was because of the state leagues creating us to build to that space. And then finally, our goal is to push out and build innovative solutions. How do we help to make sure that, your municipality in, La Plata, Maryland, can source an idea that is on the other side of the country, or that is in the heartland, that maybe you may have never heard of, right? So we bring those resources to bear in order to help make sure that we can bring some innovative solutions to your front door. Now, I will say this. We know that there has been $65 billion of direct aid that has gone to municipalities all over the country. But even in La Plata, and I think I updated the slide. I had it originally for just 1 year, but as far as ARPA is concerned, $9.48 million. I should have said $1 billion in there, but I think it's million. Sorry, I'm blanking on my numbers now today. But the point being, at the end of the day, for you guys, is that our organization has retooled and focused, I would say, probably like 90 to 95% of our efforts on not just lobbying, as Patrick was talking about, as Mary was talking about, but also looking at how do we help to make sure that over the next 4 years, 5 years, that you're leveraging these funds, that you have the up-to-date information, you have the best practices, the ideas about how to leverage this money. Because at the end of the day, we don't know if this money will ever come back to us again in any type of form. So it's imperative that each municipality leverage this money effectively, so that in the long term, whether it deals with housing, trying to deal with housing, whether it deals with economic development, whether it's looking at just basic systems that are in place currently, how do you leverage that money that will last you for a lifetime, for the next generation of people who will lead La Plata, Maryland? And that's kind of what we have pushed ourselves for as an organization. You can take a look at our website. You can just go to nlc.org if you haven't already done so. We have a number of resources there. But I will also tell you that as an organization, because we have found that there are over 19 to 20,000 municipalities across this entire country. The reality is we can't support everybody. Can't. And so one of the things, working with the state leagues, and then also being able to work with our direct members, we are basically finalizing and really making sure that we service direct members in this space, because we understand that the value of being a part of our organization is being able to access valuable resources that may not be available everywhere. And so as an organization, that's what we really pride ourselves on, is being able to create that space for direct paying members and all. So that's one of the key things that I want to just make sure I make that very clear, especially as we move into the next phase. So as the mayor mentioned, let me go to the next slide. Why to get involved outside of ARPA? There's three things I want you to think about. One, the networks. Everybody here is, I'm assuming that everybody here is familiar with the Maryland Municipal League, right? And all it has to offer, and the networks. Well, take that, make that at the national level. Why is that important? Well, the networks, the understanding of ideas, you just never know where they come from. And you also never think about, sometimes it gives you a chance to think outside of the box of what's possible. Leveraging our resources, education, to leverage that back home locally. That's NLC University, along with any other trainings and webinars that we have. And we definitely pushed, as many organizations, to really push the virtual space. And then I'm not going to rehash the last one, but ultimately the lobbying that we do as an organization that helps you all locally. Ways to get involved. As we mentioned before, here are 4 different ways that you can get involved, whether it's through our federal advocacy. The one thing that we have struggled with in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast area, because I serve as the representative for that, is that within our organization, the South is highly represented. The Midwest is represented very well. And then the West has its share. The New England, Mid-Atlantic area struggles with membership. Well, what that means is that when we go into these federal advocacy policies, federal advocacy committees, and they start thinking about what policy to put in place, what policy should we be lobbying the federal government for? What happens, unfortunately, at times is that those regions tend to find more favor, right? Because they're a larger group there, but also we don't have representation as much in some of these committees. And so ultimately, when policy gets lobbied for, it's lobbied on behalf of those regions. And what my personal goal has been over the years has been to significantly increase the participation, not just from members, but also from in these various committees, because that's where a lot of the lobbying happens and a lot of the work gets done. So how do we continue to make sure that those are supported through from the Mid-Atlantic and in the New England area? On top of that, so you can see some of the federal advocacy committees. These committees are all focused on a variety of topics. So not only are we focused on lobbying Congress, but there's the dynamic of the administration. So one of the great things as an organization that we've been able to do is our lobbyists also are able to help municipalities, on a case-by-case basis with connecting with administration officials in various departments. As you're trying to figure out how to navigate a certain grant, a certain resource that you're trying to find more information about, that's where we can be leveraged outside of just being able to leverage your local representative or another representative from another community. As the mayor mentioned, there are membership councils that we have, first tier suburbs, that may be a interesting one for you all. Small cities council, typically those are 10,000 and below. One thing I didn't mention at the top of the call was that basically out of the 2,600 municipalities that we have, when you talk about, we have about 85% of them represent our municipalities under 50,000. And under that, about 65% of them, of all of our municipalities are actually under 10,000 in population out of the 2,600. So on top of that, you can see some of the other committees here, and the mayor spoke highly about our University Communities Council and a number of other spaces that you can really find interest and connect with your peers across the country in these various topic areas. For constituency groups, as we kind of mentioned, so you have a number of them, whether it be the Hispanic elected officials, you think about the LGBTQLO committee, and actually they just modified their name. I think it's Q+ if I'm correct. And then on top of that, we have the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials and Women in Municipal Government. And the thought process behind this is that these are peers, individuals that either represent these various affinity groups or consider themselves to be a part of them. And so as you think strategically about how you connect within the organization, this is one way to do it. The last thing I want to tell you is that if you don't already know, our virtual city summit is coming up November 12th, 15th, and the 19th. We are not doing the conference anymore on the weekends, especially since it's virtual. We want to make sure that everybody has their weekends available. We are not doing conference first thing in the morning, like 8 a.m. So you can roll over, you can get a good sleep, or you can get to work and get some stuff done and then be able to join the conference. So ultimately, I wanted to just make sure I just communicated that to you, and we can talk more about it and answer any questions you may have moving forward. And I wanted to make sure I leave our contact information with you all.
Thank you very much, Timothy. It's so good to see you again. I'm going to open up. I have some questions, but I'm going to open it up to council first, since I have had the honor and privilege of sitting down with you, and then Patrick just bugs the fire out of me, trying to get me on. But no, I love this organization. I do have some questions, but I want to open it up to our council and see what questions they may have. Council, anybody have any questions? All right, not seeing any. Oh, wait a minute. I see Dave, Councilman Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Just a comment. In my previous life and work, I had contact with the National League of Cities and downloaded a lot of information about planning and economic development. And I find those publications and those resources very, very, very useful. And it would seem to me that would be a great fit for us as well. So I highly praise and highly think very highly of the NLC and what they do for towns like us. Thank you.
Councilman Challenger.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering what other other than College Park, right? What other Maryland municipalities are involved with you guys, and how have you seen it benefit them specifically, aside from the lobbying aspect?
Okay, so I'm looking through my notes real quick. Just give me a second. So let's take, for instance, the city of Annapolis. I know they recently were awarded a grant for something around sustainability in the last couple of years. City of Baltimore has got its own thing, so I'm not even going to bring them up. The city of Gaithersburg, Maryland, as far as council members, I know that from a leadership perspective, I know that Councilmember Mike Sesma, Councilmember Lori Ann Sells, all were a part of leadership, or have been a part and are currently a part of leadership within the National League of Cities. I know that the city of Tacoma got a grant or resource specifically focused on REAL and their racial equity work. Let me see here. And I might be missing a couple of them, but I will say this, that as far as states go, realistically, as far as grants and opportunities, not everybody gets it. Not everybody even applies for these things, right? And so it is a matter of like you taking ownership of that and making sure you leverage that as a benefit. I can tell you, out of the 31 members that we have here from the state of Maryland, a number of municipalities are engaged or have been engaged with the National League of Cities moving forward. Like so just to let you know, recently since the conference, we just, I don't know if you all had a chance to meet or hear from Kathy Maness, who is our current president at the National League of Cities. She spoke at the summer conference. And so while there, we were able to get the city of Salisbury join, the city of Cambridge join, or the municipality of Cambridge join, Hagerstown join, and in the past, we actually got Frederick to join as well. So a number of municipalities outside of that have joined, but more importantly, I just want to kind of give you a note for the more recent municipalities that have found value in our organization.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Hi, and thank you again, Timothy and Mayor Warham, for your presentation. Just curious, you said 31 municipalities and we have 157. What are some of the concerns that you've heard from municipalities that have not joined? I hear the benefits, but what are some of the concerns with them for not joining?
So a couple of things that I've heard. Budget. That's probably been one of the bigger ones over time, right? Is the budget there? And then I think the other thing is reality is not really understanding what our organization does. This is probably one of the first times, and Mayor Patrick Rohan, I'd love you to chime in here, but I think this is probably one of the first times that is probably a lot clearer what we do and what we can bring as it relates to resources back to the communities, because a lot of lobbying sometimes takes years to do, and sometimes it's repetitive. But in the moments of crisis, this is probably the clearest example of what value our organization can bring outside of just what we typically do, similar to the Maryland Municipal League. So hope that answers your question.
If I can add, I think one thing that I've heard is that people have said things like, well, why we belong to the Maryland Municipal League, why do we need to belong to the National League of Cities as well? And to which I answer, they fill completely different purposes. We need to have that voice. First and foremost, we need to have that voice on the national level, which Maryland does not provide. We wouldn't have gotten our funding with the American Rescue Plan Act if we didn't have that voice on the national level. That's why 1920s, whatever, all the state leagues came together to form the National League of Cities, because they recognize that the national voice for municipalities is absolutely critical. And also the networking through the Maryland Municipal League, the resources that we get through the Maryland Municipal League are great. The National League of Cities is like that on steroids. The Maryland Municipal League doesn't have the type of membership to be able to form this all the time, have a vibrant, say, small cities council like the National League of Cities does, where they bring people from across the country who are experiencing the challenges that small cities face together to talk about ideas. For us, I mentioned before the University Communities Council, having that connects us with communities around the country that are experiencing the challenges of being a town gown community, a university community. So any challenge that you can think of that you are facing, it's much more likely that there's another municipality around the country somewhere that's facing those same challenges. And so the resources that you can bring to bear, the ideas that you can share are much more significant nationwide than within the state of Maryland.
Thank you. Councilman Trollinger.
Thanks. So I'm a member, as an attorney, I'm a member of our local trial attorney group, and then there's a national trial attorney group as well. And tremendous amount of resources are passed through our listservs. Now I understand that may cause some problems logistically or legally at the city or municipal level, but aside from that, we have kind of mini seminars throughout the year, not just a big conference. What are the educational opportunities that are available to members other than your kind of large get together or now virtual conference?
I wish that I could give you I wish I can print out for you what we do now. But just to be perfectly frank, it's a long list, whether it be around supporting you around ARPA, whether it be around looking at how do you deal with housing. We have a significant, here's what I'll do. I will send you the events calendar as a way of being able to sift through that. But I can tell you there are hundreds of things that we're doing within a given quarter as it relates to a variety of topics. And that's because we find that people within our organization have different interests. And our goal is to make sure that we provide content that's relevant specifically to what your interest is as a municipality or individual to help support your growth. And so, I guess I can tell you this as a high level. One, we have webinars that we do that you can just go to. You'll be able to listen and access that content directly. You'll have opportunities to do more. Sometimes they'll do small group conversations where you'll get a chance to connect with your peers across the country to talk around a certain issue that you might be having or where we'll be hosting a conversation. One thing that we're launching is right now just with ARPA, but we're launching these what we call ARPA office hours as a way to support our direct paying members, to support them on whatever the challenges or skill sets that they need to be able to help make sure that they can report effectively to the federal government. I can send you the events calendar if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let me just say the National League of Cities has really, because of the challenges of the pandemic, really shifted a lot to that is exactly what you're talking about, Councilmember Trollinger. The resource, the online resources, there are now discussion groups that you can join about every different topic imaginable. There's My NLC. Which has different resources available. It's almost overwhelming. It can be a little bit hard to kind of keep track of, and you really there's so much available out there that figuring out the best way to take advantage of what is available can be a challenge sometimes. But there's just an incredible amount of resources available.
And you both answered my question that I thought would be one that council would be curious about. What's the difference? Why MML versus or in addition to NLC? And you answered that beautifully. And and I know Timothy, I spoke with you. Oh gosh, definitely 2018. If it was not 2017. And Patrick, of course, when I see you, we spoke to you about the importance of this. But I think the thing that really got me, besides the amazing speaker you all had, I listen to a pod group called the Next Move Group. And I don't know, Patrick, if you listen to it, it's for mayors and it's amazing. But they honed in on what the NLC did for this ARPA fund and how they were not letting it go through until they had all the municipalities accounted for. And I was like, that's what I needed to hear. And that's the big piece of information that just propelled me to say, you know, I really think that we need to find the funding if funding is a problem with that in our budget. I don't think it is. It's not budgeted for, but I'm sure we can find the money for that. But the networking and the resources that we will have access to are invaluable. So I appreciate you guys taking time out and really being able to present it and answer the questions of our council. And I'm hoping that council gets to think about this and that you will hopefully be seeing an application from us very soon. Good. Thank you, guys. Anything else for Timothy or Patrick or Mayor? I guess I got to call you Mayor too, right?
That's all right. You can call me Patrick.
I'll let the mayor go first.
Thank you.
No, I thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate this. And if there are any other questions, I put my email in the chat. I know Mayor James, you know how to reach me, but if anybody else has any questions for me, there's my email address. So please feel free to be in touch. And thank you again for considering it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all again. Let us know if you have any questions. My information is there. I actually live in Baltimore, so it's not like I live that far away. So love to eventually get to La Plata again, but talk to you all later. Thank you all.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Bye now.
I know.
All right. That moves us right into our next agenda item, which is the ARPA consulting services. And that looks like you, Mr. Greenville.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Greenville, Town Treasurer. If you will recall, at the Town Council meeting on September 21st, I presented information on the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding. Just as a reminder, the town was awarded a final allocation amount of approximately $9.5 million, of which 50% or $4.75 million was dispersed to the town on July 28th of this year. The anticipated disbursement date for the remaining 50% is July of 2022. Funds, they must be encumbered between March 3rd, 2021 and December 31st, 2024, and expended by December 31st of 2026. Due to the manner in which these funds were dispersed, the town has already received 50% of the funding available without really having an established spending plan, As staff worked its way through this process, it became clear that utilizing a third-party professional services would be beneficial. We performed extensive research on possible consultants who would best serve the town's needs. Tonight, I'm pleased to have with us Thomas Himmler, managing member at Thomas Michael LLC, and they're located out of Greenbelt, Maryland. Their firm has over 30 years of public finance expertise across all levels of government financing, including ARPA funding. Their firm responded to a request for qualifications, or RFQ, from the city of Hyattsville for ARPA consulting services. They were awarded the contract and are offering the town the same per hour price as that agreement. They are also providing these services to several other municipalities and counties in Maryland. With that being said, I'm pleased to have Tom here with us tonight to present information on his firm and his proposal for ARPA consulting services.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I hope you can hear me, and I appreciate the opportunity to just tell a little bit about our firm, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to help the town out. And I have a brief presentation that I'm going to put on the screen. And hopefully you can see this. Kevin, if you can give me a thumbs up, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
Okay. So a little bit about our firm. Everything we do, we're about being creative, but not only just being creative, we want to be innovative. And that means really helping taking creative ideas and then using innovation to make sure that they transfer into doing something. Our approach is quite simple. We want to help, whether it's the private sector or public sector, make the right decision, and with the goal being to help communities be transformed. Our approach is we do this through 3 different ways in particular, and we'll talk a little bit about the services that we offer, but we want to help communities make smart budgetary decisions. As you all know, if you make the right investment, it can have huge results. We want to help governments implement sound policies, and we also want to help, one of the other services we offer is attracting economic development and private investment into communities. As Kevin mentioned, we have over 30 years of experience in both the public sector and private sector, 23 years in particular in the state and local government experience, including multiple senior level positions in government. And we also have 7 years of senior executive level experience in the private sector. A number of areas we focus on is budget and fiscal, public policy, legislative, government operations and procedures, economic development, procurement, human capital, healthcare. We have a wide range of experience that we bring to our clients. The first area in particular we focus on, and this is really relevant to the ARPA funds, is our budgetary and fiscal matters. We really, one of our main objectives is to assist governments in developing and implementing sound fiscal policies and practices. And as part of doing that is helping, in particular with ARPA funds, develop a plan that makes sense, that's going to achieve the goals and objectives that you want. We also do a number of other things. For governments, we help them develop revenue projections, expenditure projections, and so forth. Under policies and procedures, we also help our clients in adopting and implementing new laws, policies, and best practices. Because as somebody who used to work in government, we were always trying to be as most efficient and effective as possible. The presentation before us is a good example of how you can do some of that, is by getting ideas from other cities and towns across the country. Economic development opportunities is our third prong that we really focus on as a company. We assist communities in attracting and retaining jobs, attracting private investment, and in particular expanding the residential and commercial tax bases through public-private partnerships. So our experience with COVID, as Kevin mentioned, we have experience with working with clients from the beginning with CARES Act, and it continued through the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which most people remember as the December stimulus package, and then of course the American Rescue Plan Act. As Kevin mentioned, we're currently providing and have been providing advisory services in a similar fashion to various local governments that have received almost $450 million in federal funds since March of 2020 when the pandemic started. We do a number of different things for our clients. One is a big one, which is assist in developing of spending plans. We really help our clients really focus on what's your goals, what's your objectives in spending this money. We also help them making sure that they're in compliance with the U.S. Treasury guidelines of eligible uses, but also helping them to make sure they meet all the reporting requirements. We have helped a number of clients developing program designs, guidelines, applications. We have a good network of reaching out to federal partners, state partners, and other local partners as well. We help our clients monitor and advise them of any updates in Treasury changes, and as anybody who went through CARES last time, CARES Act in particular, Treasury was always updating things. This time around, they're a little bit better. They're a little more focused. They haven't done as many updates yet, but one of the more relevant updates is that they, as you all are probably aware, they modified the non-entitlement units first reporting date from end of October of this year to the end of April of next year. So to give the cities and towns a little bit more time. So it's various things that we do for our clients across the board. So in summary, what we really want to do with our clients is to help them recover, restore, and transform their communities with these funds. And that's our goal. As Kevin mentioned, you're scheduled to receive $9.5 million in total between the two tranches. And we would love to be a part of helping you do that. And I think, as the previous speakers mentioned, this is a once in a lifetime, opportunity with these funds. I've been around, public finance for quite a while now, and I've never seen this amount of money coming down to the local government level. And it's just a great opportunity to really help transform the community of La Plata for its residents, businesses, and everyone involved. So I thank you for giving us a few minutes just to really talk a little bit about ourselves, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I appreciate that. I will open it up to council for questions, and then I will follow after that. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Himmler, for your presentation. I'm really happy to hear what your missions are with regards to our funding. One of the concerns that I've had when I was when we attended MML and several other conversations prior to that, most folk were at a loss for what to do with those fundings and what could be done with it. You said you want to, what do you say, resource, restore, and transform. Where did your level of knowledge come from with regards to ARPA funding to be able to offer the assistance in managing those funds for us?
We've been dealing with federal, spending since CARES Act, and so a lot of what's done under ARPA is a continuation of the CARES Act, but also with our experience. I used to be the chief financial officer of a very large jurisdiction, one of the largest jurisdictions, local governments in the country. And in that time, I've developed $40 billion worth of spending plans at the local level. So I have a pretty good idea of how to make investments. And what our role is with this is to help you, kind of look at that pie that you've been given and help you figure out what's your priorities, because anybody can spend money, but one of the things we want to do is what's your goals, what's your objectives, what do you want to achieve, and how does that fit into the guardrails that Treasury has established, and hopefully be able to meet those goals and objectives, and ultimately help the community, help the households that have been impacted, help make infrastructure improvements to change the La Plata community. So it's working within these guardrails is important, because some people think it's free money, it's flexible, and it's not. There are guardrails. As Kevin and I have discussed, there are some ways that we're going to look at that can get you flexibility if you kind of qualify to do some things. But the one good thing so far is Treasury has learned their lesson from the CARES Act. And they have an updated frequently asked question, which is really one of the guidebooks for how you implement these things since July. So they're being a little more methodical than what they were with CARES, because CARES, they were coming out with guidelines every month, and you would do something, one time, and then a month later they come back and clarify it and say, well, no, sorry. So they really are taking a more focused approach to it. But at the end of the day, it really centers on what's your goals and objectives, and that's what we're trying to encourage our clients to really focus on that first. We can carve up the pie, help you carve up the pie, but we want to make sure we accomplish that.
So I was more concerned about the guardrails. So thank you so much for mentioning those. You're right, anybody can spend money, but I want to make sure that when we spend this money, there are no repercussions for it. There are no penalties or anything like that. So I was more concerned about the guardrails than the spending. So thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
And the CARES Act was a hot mess. It did change, and so I would not compare the ARPA funding with the CARES Act in any way. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councilman James.
Thank you, Mr. Himmler, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation tonight. I guess just a little bit further from what Councilmember Bryant Ward asked with respect to the guardrails, do you also look at, in the context of La Plata, would you look at it in the context of what could be the greatest return on this investment for our community? That if we have this year 4.9 or whatever it is $1 million, how can we get the best use of that funding for short, midterm, or long-term ROI?
And that's part of we view that as part of the establishing goals and objectives, because we want
Okay.
you to help you make investments that are going to have returns. You know, there's some things you can do. For example, one example is, you know, some of our clients want to focus on helping make things more affordable, to do something with affordable housing, and so there's different approaches to doing that, right? So you can go and provide, you know, down payment assistance programs, which will probably help more people, or you could put money into a community land trust, which essentially you buy property and then you turn around and sell it to somebody, and they have a so-called interest in it. So again, it's looking at what the return and benefit is. In that case, you may decide you may have more benefit if you do something that's more of a first-time home buyer kind of incentive to encourage home ownership by certain income level folks, versus making a huge one-time investment in a land trust that may only benefit one or two people. So it's those things, and Treasury will, depending on where you invest money, Treasury is going to you're going to have to report as of now. Now they may change this as they are looking at the NEU reporting, but depending on what you invest in, you may have to track data, which is getting to your results question.
Okay.
So it depends upon which category of spending you decide to invest in. There may be a data performance-based reporting requirement as part of it. Not everything has it, but there are certain areas, if you say, yes, we're going to invest in that, you're going to have to track it.
Okay. And then I guess, thank you for that clarification and answer. I'm not sure it's appropriate time, Madam Mayor, but I was going to ask Mr. Greenville a question. Are these fees covered by the federal funds?
Yes, they will be.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Trollinger.
Hey, good evening. Thanks again for your presentation. I have two questions. One is in respect to the guardrails that you and this Councilwoman Bryant Ward discussed. Are you, I don't know if this is the right way of asking this, but insured such that we rely upon your advice as to particular spending? And now we know the federal government sometimes changes things, or there's some nuances there, some gray area. Are you insured in such a way that we're protected if we go along with your advice on particular spending and it turns out it wasn't the way funds were supposed to be spent?
We carry, you know, standard professional liability. We have umbrella coverage. You know, if it's a something that's a blatant error on our part, you know, that, you know, the insurance folks will work that out. But we are more than amply covered through various policies we have.
But that would cover us as well for relying upon your advice.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. So if we give you advice and Treasury comes back 3 years from now and it's not gray, right? We just made a blatant error, and it was and it cost you $100,000. You can come after our firm. We have insurance for that. Now, one thing a Treasury is usually not black and white, and we will try to get them as black and white as possible if there is grayness. One thing our firm is, we are cautious. I mean, we would rather err on the side if it's really gray. You know, we would encourage you not to go down that road, and that's our firm's philosophy. That's, when I was in government, that was my philosophy as well. I'm not but the other thing is, along those lines, it's document everything, and that's what we've been trying to help our clients do. And you know, everything we do, if you ask us questions, well, is this such and such eligible? We're going to go through the Treasury's guidelines, the interim final rule, the FAQs, and we're going to cite everything that we see for the basis of it. So if they come back 3 years from now, you'll be able to point to, look, this was in a July 19th, 2021 FAQ question 2.6. You said it was here. So, you know, you may have changed your mind 3 years later, but it was here. And that's what we try to do to help our clients out.
Okay, thank you. My second question relates to accessibility from our staff, for Kevin and for Brent. and for anybody that needs it. I saw with the payroll protection funds, as a small business owner, there were a number of firms that kind of popped up that were assisting small businesses in securing funds or offering guidance. They got overwhelmed fairly quickly with the need, right? So I would assume that there are many municipalities throughout the country that are needing these services, of which we are one. How do we? What is our expectation as far as communication goes, and do we have a designated person that will have our folks be able to rely upon in a pinch and throughout the process?
Well, as far as us, the engagement lead is me, and the way our clients have worked now is, we prefer that they kind of work through one person's, just so it's not, so if you have questions that you want things to look at, if you can funnel it through one person, because it gets complicated if I'm getting, if we're getting 9 different emails, from the same client that may be overlapping. It's better to funnel it through one person. They can sift out duplication and then get it to us, so we can provide guidance and assistance. But we're accessible. I mean, Kevin and I have talked numerous times, already, and we'll communicate and meet as much as possible to help you all accomplish what the goals and objectives.
All right, Councilman Goldsmith.
Yeah, yes. And when I was reading through the stuff yesterday in preparation for the night, I thought I saw on there is a max. Your hourly rate, but there was a max as well for the contract. Did I miss something, or am I dreaming?
No, that's what it is. So it's similar to, like Kevin mentioned, we were fortunate enough to be selected through a competitive process with the city of Hyattsville, and there's a max contract, so it can't go over 60,000.
Okay, thank you.
Great answers to the questions that the council has asked, and most of them were my questions as well. My one thing that I did not see is community input. How are you going to, that's a big thing that people have been asking for, or even council input. How will you engage the community when trying to allocate these funds?
That's a good question, and that's what for another client a little bit later this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the things for them to really decide, because U.S. Treasury has encouraged cities, towns, counties, states to get impact from their community. They want you to do that. There's various forms of doing that. You can have multiple public hearings. You can create some of them have created websites with some basic American Rescue Plan Act information, and either have a ARPA email to get ideas from. Some of them have set up kind of a selection, a menu, a multiple choice kind of a thing that says, here's the areas where you can spend money in by the guidelines. Prioritize where you think we should spend the money, and the residents go in and prioritize it. So it can be a combination of different things. You're critical to this because it's important to, because you all have the power of be able to hold a public hearing and get special feedback on this in different ways. The virtual world's probably made it easier than in the old, I want to say old, but the old in-person days, because now it gives people more accessibility. But those are ways to do it, and if you decide to have a forum specifically for that, we can help kind of kick it off and say, kind of provide some guidance. Here's guardrail. I love using the word guardrail because that's really, here's things that you can spend it on in broad categories, and then open it up, have you all open it up for comment as to ideas. And then usually what happens after that is we'll work with you all and review those ideas and tell you, okay, kind of as a treasury umpire, so to speak, that's in, that's out, as far as eligibility uses. But again, we've helped give ideas. So some communities, depend upon the level of involvement, some haven't gotten much feedback. So we've gone in and looked at, American Community Survey data, for example, some communities, and if we discovered, hey, there's a lot of seniors in there, maybe an idea is given, at least for this calendar year, the COLA for Social Security wasn't that much. It was only 1.3 or so, 1.6%, but inflation's been running 5. So seniors have been really squeezed with gas prices, food prices, everything else. Maybe set up a program to help seniors specifically. Now, you may not want to do that, may not have to do that next year because the COLA for Social Security now is 6% plus, but it's helping you come up with ideas like that based on some data that's out there as well.
Thank you for that, because that's very important. The other thing that you mentioned that I'm very intrigued by is the economic development in the P3. I always like the private partnerships, because I do think that when you collaborate, you're a little bit stronger. So I would be very interested in pursuing some of P3s to see how we can really grow our town. And if we can, within, staying within the guardrails there, because I know it can be creative, but there's gray areas, and we would never want to overstep those boundaries.
No, we'll look forward to, hopefully discussing those options with you. I mean, a couple that, some economic development related I know are eligible is, if you want to partner with the private sector and maybe in certain parts of the town that need a refresh. So you can do some facade improvement programs and those kind of things to maybe refresh. And that's a good way of partnering with the private sector, whether it's landlord and or tenant, to really do a refresh of some of the commercial areas. One of our clients is looking at doing that in there because they have a pretty large commercial district that's pretty dated. So we're working with them to potentially do a program like that as well.
I love that idea, and that would fall under this money. I mean,
Yes.
Yep. It hurts my head looking at that. I was looking at Kevin's going through that, and it changes all the time. So yeah, that would, especially since we're trying to revitalize our downtown, and we are Maryland's first bird city, so that's gotta have some weight to it. It's got a tourism, when people are going to bird city. But no, I really look forward to working with you and your company and helping us with that. I'm sure that it takes off a little pressure from Kevin, and as partners, you can work together instead of having all of that on his shoulders. So I appreciate that very much. Council, any other questions that you may have on this topic? All right, and Brent, do we need to do, or Kevin, do we need to do any action on this, or is it just purely presentation and for us to get excited about spending money?
You're muted.
Mayor, we'll have a resolution at the business meeting for you guys to adopt us to enter into this contract.
Do we need a consensus? Or did we already vote on this?
I don't know that. I think you guys are voting on it, so I don't know if we need a consensus, but Brent?
Yeah, I believe we received the consensus at the previous meeting in September. Move forward. We just more familiarize you with the firm.
Well, now that we've heard the presentation, we should probably get a consensus, because it might have changed our minds. I don't know. So I'm going to ask Councilman Goldsmith, favor of moving on?
Yes, but I do have one quick question. And as far as using someone who's a professional, are there fines built into this act if we misspend it as well?
No, what Treasury, the fine quote, the quote fine is that Treasury will ask you to pay it back. So if they deem after an investigation that you spend it on an improper use, they'll say cut U.S. Treasury a check for the amount. So that's the fine. That's the fine.
All right, thank you. No, I support it. I think we'll continue forward.
Great. Councilman Trollinger? He may have popped off. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have partnership for Kevin, to someone that's really going to help support him in his decision making. So thank you.
Councilman Jenkins.
Oh, yes, in full support. This is a great opportunity for us to both not only leverage an existing contract, but also get that expertise. And I've been more encouraged by this presentation, but what some things that they can do for us. So yes, all for it.
Me as well, both and I would love to move forward, but it's encouraging, and I know that our staff is stretched very much, so I am sure that this will help immensely.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to do a presentation. We look forward to working with y'all.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening.
You too.
All right, next is a special events permit follow-up information. I see Colleen's on here and Chief, and I am sure that we will have a great conversation on this. It's all yours, Colleen.
Okay. Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing us to present again. As we talked, you all requested some follow-up information on some of the other communities and what they do for their permits. So that was attached to the agenda, and you can see we had researched what Annapolis, Chesapeake Beach, Leonardtown, also looked at the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs and the Charles County Public Schools. So you'll see that information attached on there. And I don't know how you want to proceed, if you want to go over any questions for that part, Mayor, or?
I thought that was very helpful, especially since Chesapeake Beach and Leonardtown are in our Southern Maryland Municipal Association. And so that one did give me a little bit of eye-opening, but Chesapeake Beach and Leonardtown are considerably smaller. I think Chesapeake Beach has 2,500 people and Leonardtown is 4,000. So half the size of ours, but I do see where they do charge, and even in our backyard with the Charles County Public Schools, that was very helpful. Council, do you have any questions on any of the information that was provided to us per our request on that? All right.
And the next thing we had presented was the special event matrix, which the chief really developed. So I'll let you speak more to this, Chief, if that works for you.
Yeah, that's fine. What we did is we just went back over the last couple of years and kind of laid out, because of COVID, some events that we had historically dealt with didn't go on during COVID. We didn't have as many walks or some of the other things. So we tried to put a master list together to kind of show throughout the course of a typical year when COVID isn't active, the type of events that take place in town. And as I've said before, this really makes La Plata Americana, especially the town-related events that Colleen works so hard to put on. But because it's such a nice place to have events, we get request after request after request. And those dollar figures add up in our overtime budget, and the employee burnout adds up over the course of time. And then as you can see, if you can just scroll that up a little bit, when you get into the month of October, November, and December, we get pretty busy. And sometimes we'll have as many as 2 or 3 events in one weekend. And this list wasn't meant to be all inclusive because we do get one-time special requests from time to time, or we'll have an event that goes on for a few years and then we don't have it for a year or two and then it comes back. So it's really kind of a guide more than anything else. But just to kind of give you an idea, we recently had a walk. We had 5 officers detailed to it. It cost us $807 in funds. We had 4 of our public safety cadets explorers who assisted with it. So if we didn't have those young men and women that were helping us, that would have been backfilled with patrol officers, and that price tag would have probably went up into the $1,200 range. For one event, it doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but when you multiply that over the course of the year and all the other things that we have going on, it takes its toll. So any questions that I can answer on the matrix?
I'm going to go to Councilman Jenkins and then Councilman Goldsmith, and then I will ask questions. So Councilman Jenkins.
Thank you. And thanks for Colleen and Chief for putting this together. It's very, very educational. I guess I didn't really realize the scope of all the things that go on. And I don't know whether it's a dumb question. So if the town sponsors a event, we still have to pay everything, right? I mean, is that a fair statement?
Yeah, at least with the police department,
Okay.
whenever we can, if we have a full squad of 4 working, we may detail an on-duty officer to work part of that event. So it doesn't cost anything, but what we would normally be paying. But we also have to remember, we're still responsible to run the calls for service in town when these events are going on, make sure everybody stays safe. So we kind of balance as best we can. Sometimes we'll maybe switch a day where an officer really wants a day off later in the week. Well, if you come in and help us on Saturday, that Wednesday that you want it off, well, maybe we can trade that out. And we do that from time to time. But yeah, the town events we cover them. You know, the concerts, we have an officer there on overtime and a couple of cadets to help out. But yeah, those expenses are incurred no matter what.
And I certainly, as Colleen indicated earlier, it certainly does take a toll on folks. And you know, it really stretches the staff. So thank you for the answer and thank you for the work.
Absolutely.
Councilman Goldsmith.
Yeah, I didn't have my hand up, but I'd be happy to speak. I guess the key question I have, Colleen, does Charles County also get these kind of requests, and how do they handle the funding?
They do. They have an event process. I was not successful in getting more information out of them because you have to actually go in and apply for an event in order to get the information. Theirs is not real clear on their website. I do know previously to working for the town, I worked for 2 different nonprofits in Charles County, and we put on a large event at the fairgrounds and had to go through a permitting process, pay a fee, pay the officers to work the event. You know, anything we needed to do, we had to pay for that. So they do have a process in place for their events also.
I think it's about time that we do start to get some reimbursement for the expenses that we incur.
I agree too. And here's a question that I have. Say, moving forward, we decide to charge for non-town events. This past weekend, an event was just canceled because of impending weather. I don't know, I was out of town. I don't know if that impending weather did actually come in and affect that. How would you handle? Because I know, Chief, you're calling in people and Bobby would be calling in people to help with an event of that sort. And they canceled it, you know, they canceled it, I guess at 5 a.m. is when I got in. It was supposed to be 12, what was it, 12 to 4?
11 to 5. I can speak on that a little bit.
Okay, please do.
According to our event permit, we're required to have 48 hours notice. That did not happen. We had 2 public works staff here for that event. You know, they were being paid overtime. I was not made aware until I saw your Facebook post, Mayor. That's how I found out the event was canceled. You know, I spoke to one of the public works staff at 9, you know, they were checking in. They didn't know I wasn't there. So I explained, you know, someone will be there checking in. And then when I saw your post, I reached out to Jeff Gardner to find out, hey, how did the guys find out? Well, they found out around noon. So they had been there probably since 8. So that is an issue. And then the issue we had a couple weeks ago with the walk not starting at the right time. I think the letter the chief had sent is attached also, and that did create problems where, you know, we had time and place set. You're supposed to start at this time. The officers were going to be there a half an hour beforehand, but the walk started early. The other problem is people don't know we're not running the event. So, we got a lot of questions about Arts Fest. Is it canceled? What's going on? Well, I want to be informed and be able to communicate to the community what is going on, but we didn't have that information.
No, and then with the walk, as I told you, I mean, it was very stressful for me, especially as being the honorary co-chair on there, and I'm supposed to be there at 10:30. That's start time. That's when we were going to kick it off. And when I saw people walking in their purple, and they started at as early as 9. And my big thing is safety. That's what we're providing. And our police officers were not there because it was supposed to start at 11. So that's the part that gave me a big heartache. There were a lot of people that participated. They said over 200 participated that signed up in this, and I'm sure others came that were not signed up. So I am looking at the list, and I know some of it is some of them are our events, but Shop a Small La Plata. That's another one. You guys are out that participate. It's a community event, or Rocktoberfest, and I know Keith has always offered to pay for what expenses there are. When I told Alzheimer's that we were going to charge next year, they didn't even blink an eye. They said, okay. I said, be sure to budget it. So, Colleen, as you have mentioned several times, when you worked for a nonprofit, you knew that just was cost of doing business. So I am in favor of moving forward and recouping some of our costs. The one that, Colleen and Chief, that gave us a hard time last council was thinking about homecoming parade, because that takes a lot of manpower to shut down a state highway for this, and there are alternatives. So they do not have to have it through the town, and as Colleen and I had discussed, that they can have it over in the area of the high school, so they can still have it. But yeah, that's the only one that hung us up last time, I think. And we were talking about grandfathering in and doing these other things and being way too elaborate with that. I think that we continue with the events, but I am in favor of having a fee schedule that is presented to anyone that wants to use our public works, our police. Council, you want to weigh in?
Madam Mayor, I think it's a reasonable process to try to just recoup our costs to support those services. From what I remember from the draft special permit, the revised special permit that I think they presented, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, that seemed to be a reasonable process to proceed on. My only question would be when would it be implemented? Would it be this fiscal year, or I mean, I guess that's a question to be determined. But I would be in support of at least some process to recoup our costs.
Chief, do you want to chime in, and then I'll go to Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. One of the things I wanted to mention, we had a walk a few years ago that came up last minute. There was advertisement that went on. It was by another government agency, and they decided that they were going to provide their own security. They had told us they had got some off-duty officers from allied agencies. Not every one of the off-duty officers who promised to be there showed up. So it ended up, our people had to handle it while they were handling calls to make sure people stayed safe. So one of the things I want to hopefully we can agree on is somebody holds an event in town and they want to use a road closure or something. The only way that we're going to honor these permits if it's our police department that handles it. We handle these all the time. Lieutenant Payne and Sergeant Bagley are outstanding at preparing these events. And one of the other things, we had the day of the event. We sit and meet with the folks who are hosting it, and we come up with a detailed event plan. to make sure we have everything in place, who's going to be where at what time, what medical resources are nearby, if we have that unusual occurrence, how we're going to handle it. So although we look at it and it cost us $800 for this last walk, if you go back and look at the staff time beforehand, you have another couple $100 involved. And we're happy to do that as part of this process. And not look at that as it helps us keep sharp. But this is just one of the things I wanted to mention. I don't want to ramble here, is that if we're going to host something here in town, that it's our officers that handle it, our public works crews who are very knowledgeable of everything that goes on here in town, and we don't let allied agencies or other people come in and do the public works functions.
Agreed. Thank you. Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is outstanding and probably way past time. We are probably the only municipality that does not charge. Prince George's County right up the road, Charles County, they charge. And I think it's excellent, especially given the fact that we have so many staff members that show up for these events. Colleen is there for every event, long hours. And I think that we need to be able to cover our costs. And I think that when we start talking about the particulars, it is important that we get legal counsel to draft up the permits and everything to make sure that it is consistent language, that we do not, we don't want to be accused of showing, partiality to certain agencies. It should be consistent across the board. Everybody is included, and we get the language drafted to make sure that we are assigning our fees equitably. So yes, I am totally in favor of it.
Thank you for that. Councilman Trollinger.
I would agree with the council. I think it achieves two purposes. Number one, we want to make sure that our residents, our taxpayers, aren't floating the cost of events planned by those that can pay. I think it's important that we're not passing the buck on to them, and those funds can be spent elsewhere. But secondly, and I think Councilwoman Bryant Ward is alluding to this, we're giving this idea out there that we're doing a lot more than we may with it. Like Chief Schinner brought up a problem. If I'm coming to a town event or an event in the town, I'm thinking the town is throwing it, like Colleen mentioned. And I think we need to be very clear with our documents that we put forward that the public knows who their point of contact is for all of these things. And so we don't put ourselves out there as causing a problem. Like, for example, like this last situation that you guys described, that had nothing to do with our decision or our call. But everybody would assume that it was. So we can make that more clear with an event planning process. And I think that's helpful. So I'm fully in support of moving forward with that.
Thank you. Brent, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, 2 points to what Councilman Trollinger just stated. We could probably put a disclaimer on the application that would require, that in full disclosure that the town is not sort of hosting the event, that it is being hosted by a private party. Additionally, I think, Mayor, you had asked the question about process, and I think that at this point, it'd probably be best for us to bring back maybe some recommended costs associated with the permit itself. And we brought this to you now because, Colleen, I believe you start accepting applications for special events early next calendar year. Is that correct?
Yes, people can apply. They have to apply at least 90 days in advance. So we were trying to, rarely do we get January, February, big events, but wanted to try to get prepared for that.
So within the calendar year, we need to be ready to have the sort of schedule of fees amended to sort of implement these new fees heading into next calendar year. So I think at this point, if it's the will of the council, we can come back with some recommendations of those fees and to you in a future work session for final consideration.
That would be wonderful, especially when you see, and I'm looking at the matrix right now. I think the first one that it would be would impact Night to Shine, no, but I think the Shamrock Run, because it's right in town, obviously. So it would be Shamrock Run, 2 police officers, 2 public works, cost of so and so is what we would pass on, so that it gives us a visual that we can really see the impact on that. And then they have the decision. But the question would be too, and Chief, it would be to you, what if, I'm going to say Shamrock Run because it's here. If Shamrock Run says, okay, I only want 1 police officer and 1 public works, are you and Colleen and whoever the higher beings are going to say, listen, it's not like a pick and choose what you can afford. This is what we're going to provide, and this is what you need in order to have this event.
Well, Mayor, I think we accept a whole lot of a lot of liability if we don't have something properly staffed. So
Right.
we went to a standard 5K run plan and a standard walk plan. So we know exactly how many posts we have and how many people we need to man those posts. And with our explorers, when we have availability, it may save people a little bit of money if we can team them up with a police officer. But there's a minimum mandatory that we have to have in order to assure the public safety, and not put even if we have this disclaimer on there, if we don't act in good faith, I think we're a little liable. So I think and there's attorneys on here know a lot more about that than I do, but just through my training, we need to make sure that we have the people on hand to make sure the event goes forth safely.
And that makes total sense. So I heard from Councilman Trollinger and Councilwoman Bryant Ward. Councilman Goldsmith and Councilman Jenkins, are we good to move forward? And we'll have the next step, have them present us some numbers.
I'm
Yeah, I
okay to
totally
move forward.
concur. Yes.
Good. All right.
Same here.
All right. So, and thank you. And again, Chief, I appreciate the letter to the Alzheimer's Association, because I was a little bit upset that day, and I just felt taken advantage of, and that especially when we offered them an earlier time, that did not sit well with me. So I appreciate the follow-up on that as well.
Well, no good deed goes unpunished, Mayor. It seems like sometimes in life, and yeah, and again, to me, the most dangerous thing with that, you want to start early. Yeah, you shouldn't do it. But if some child gets hurt crossing Route 6, that's tough to happen on anybody's watch. And if we can prevent it in any way, we need to do so. Yeah,
I agree. Well, thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Chief. And we'll just move forward with that. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Design Review Board admin process. That sounds like a Janine.
That would be me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So staff has been, as you know, reviewing the Design Review Board process. We've already made some changes earlier in the year and took that to our December 2020 Town Council meeting to revise Chapter 16. We did make some edits there, and that was adopted February 22nd of 2021. But we've still noticed that there's some improvements that could be made to the process, not only on behalf of staff, but for the applicants as well. So we've been doing our research. We've been talking to the Little Plata Business Association and just trying to figure out a way to move forward so that way it's not so intensive of a process that it makes things too difficult, but while still making sure that we're adhering to our design guidelines and keeping our commercial zones an attractive and welcoming place. So I've noted some background for you as far as how the design guidelines were adopted. Last code changes that I could find for those were in 2011, and that's what we've been using up until this point. We did make some changes earlier this year, which the Design Review Board reviewed and approved in May 12th, 2021. And I was doing some research and I found some other areas, including Alexandria, Virginia, that have an administrative process for review. So they have items that don't need review at all. They have items that can be reviewed by staff, and they have items that are reviewed by a design review board or an architectural board, or in some cases, a historical architectural board. So after looking at some of those examples, I've put together a proposal, and I would like to get the town council's feedback first so we can further develop this, and then take it to the design review board at their November meeting to discuss this with them as well, and just try to get a better process in place. So the administrative process that I'm proposing is to provide certain items that don't need approval, some that do need approval by staff, and some that need approval by the design review board. I did receive comments from the La Plata Business Association, which I've included in my staff report. They overall liked the proposal and the flexibility that it provided with some of the smaller items. As it's currently laid out in Chapter 16 in our process, pretty much everything that's architecturally related, including door handles, windows, shutters, everything has to be reviewed by the design review board. And there's certain instances where those, may not be as big of an item that requires an exact board approval. Since they only meet once a month, it can make things very difficult for the business community to make small updates or small changes. And I've noticed that there's a lot of signage complaints on the business association end. So I did provide the comments they liked. I come proposing to have kind of an approved color palette list that if you're painting your building from tan to white or white to tan, any kind of neutral color that's in compliance with the design guidelines, you wouldn't need to go to the design review board necessarily. You could get staff approval for that process. And then I'm also proposing, we've already kind of brought this to the design review board, but we had a shingle grant that Danielle had proposed, I guess it was last year, that had a kind of standard design for a shingle sign that the downtown CB community could apply for and put those up without needing to go through the design review board. So since that was already kind of set as a precedent, I felt that maybe we could come up with some standard designs with the design review board's input, that if you are doing that exact sign, you don't need to go through the design review board. You could go through staff at that level. It kind of plays into a common sign plan process that at this point, if the design review board approves a common sign plan, then staff can review and approve a sign permit based on that overall plan. So after reviewing the comments provided by the La Plata Business Association, I did attach a draft. Obviously, it needs to be developed further. I've kind of proposed some examples of what a paint scheme could look like. They had a HOA, which I found very interesting in Arizona, that actually had an approved paint color list. Theirs got a little bit more specific. I don't think we need to get that specific. They had an actual like paint brand, paint color. I think we can be a little bit more general with that if you're doing tan, white, brown, those types of things. But again, this is what I want to take to the design review board as well to get their further input on the exact colors and kind of designs for the signage. But with that, I would like to get the input from the town council before I proceed to the design review board, just to see if you had any comments, edits, or direction to continue with this before I bring this before the design review board at their November meeting. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or if you have any input at this point.
Janine, I have a quick question. I'm looking at design review that's no approval necessary or required. And to me, I always think worst case scenario. So if you say storm doors or, fill in the blank, with the exception of or seasonal holiday decorations, are there parameters for them? Because maybe somebody is going to have a very large inflatable Santa or a hot air balloon, which normally would not be allowed because it's against code, but then it says it is seasonal holiday decoration. So I'm just looking to see, it worries me a little bit when it says no approval required, and then the next one says town staff on that. My gut, just sitting on the DRB, that I would think that it would have staff's approval, even on the no approval thing, that they have to at least run it by you, maybe not an administrative process. And then the artwork and things, that it should go through the arts work group instead of saying, you know, maybe not just staff, because we have a group that's already established on that. That's my kind of mindset on that.
I mean, those are very good points. So we can certainly provide additional direction within the document. Art, I guess when I put in here, the art is that it doesn't need design review board approval. So we could further explain that it does need the, art board approval, those types of things. Seasonal holiday decorations, we can include in there the fact that inflatables are not allowed per town code. So we can certainly add parameters or provide additional information on those topics. I think the main thing I'm looking at is the door handles, door hardware, those types of things. I think those are really to the point where that doesn't need review. So if there's any specifics that you think should have staff review rather than no approval required as far as design review board goes, you can certainly let me know that. Otherwise, I can certainly provide additional parameters to make it very clear.
And I absolutely love that you are streamlining this, because to have 93-year-old man come in because he painted his easement up there a different color, that was a little extra. many years ago, but that was a little over the top. But it was because that's what the code is written. That's what you have to do. So I like that you are really thinking outside the box and thinking that, come on now, that's ridiculous. If it's these colors, you're fine. So do not waste anybody's time. Council, do you have questions for Director Harrington? Or what's your feeling on streamlining this versus DRB? Councilman Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Harrington, for moving this forward. I'm in general agreement about streamlining the process. I think we appreciate the fact that you reached out to the La Plata Business Association. Again, partnership and collaboration, as you know, is important. So that I appreciate you doing that. And then I saw there was some couple of, I guess, questions or comments about themes or other examples. And I happened to, several years ago, and I looked at it the other day, Denton, Maryland has a pretty straightforward sign ordinance, but they also have an appendix that has great illustrations of signs. And I know you've attempted to do that already. So I don't know whether that could be another example to go by, perhaps.
What was the name of the?
I'm sorry, Denton, Maryland.
Denton. Okay, I'll take a look.
And then this is probably at this point pretty expensive and maybe way beyond the scope, but I know there was a comment, I think, by the La Plata Business Association of, I guess, what's the preferred design or the architecture. And I know, again, in Denton, several years ago, they hired an architectural firm, and I'm not suggesting that here because it can get pretty expensive, but they went back and did what they call a Denton pattern analysis. Denton, Maryland again, and they spent a lot of time trying to understand the architectural feel of the town and what they thought they wanted based upon that study. And again, that's also on our website. And perhaps that's just an idea. And I think in the prior discussion under the ARPA money, I think the mayor mentioned perhaps a facade improvement program, which I think is a terrific idea, Mayor. And in fact, you probably already know this. Leonardtown has a program where they do that. They have a grant program where they have grants and they offer businesses funds to improve their frontages and within the business district. So again, I would certainly at the appropriate time encourage that as well. And again, thanks for the work.
Thank you. Councilman Goldsmith?
Yeah, a lot of work went into this, Harrington. I appreciate it. Anything that cuts down on the bureaucracy application process is very important. And I think the Business Association appreciated, as you indicated, you presented it to them. Also, time is money. And I noticed on the design review board, if they have to come back a following month, that's another whole month that they're incurring expenses that they're not getting any benefit out of. So that's important as well, to be able to cut down on how much time it takes. And when they bring something to us to look at it and approve it, and if it can be done right there within your office, more or less, then that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bryant?
Thank you, Director Harrington. I appreciate you doing this work as well. The only thing I would just add, any areas that could be subjective to interpretation, might want to clear it up. You know, again, piggybacking off of what the mayor said, you know, lawn decorations, what does that really look like? You definitely don't want anything that's going to be constricting or, you know, present any type of hazard to the community. So anything you can do to clear up any ambiguous language, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Wonderful. It sounds like you have a consensus about streamlining this on that.
Yeah,
And I know it's a lot of hard work.
I think it'll make it a lot easier for staff as well as the applicants, because we do put a lot of time and effort into our staff reports and preparing for these meetings. So I think that this will make it a little bit easier on our end as well.
Councilman Trollinger, do I see your hand raised?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. So I agree. To make it a full consensus and to let Director Harrington know that I also appreciate her hard work here.
Fantastic. Thank you. And just, I think, moving forward, you've got the direction and the will of the council. We fully support your initiative and thank you for it.
Thank you.
All right. Next is, I think it's still you, or maybe it's Kevin, and Manager of Inspections Truck Purchase Request.
Yes, this is still me. So for the purchase of a town truck, we are looking to purchase a new 2022 Ford F-150 truck for our planning department position. We currently have one Ford F-250, which our code enforcement officer, Aaron Masra, utilizes as a take-home vehicle. We did hire a manager of inspections on August 30th of this year, and the intention was to purchase a vehicle for his use. We did reach out, and I actually got a lot of help from Chief Schinner and Kevin on this, on getting quotes, because I had no idea how to get a quote for a vehicle. So they were very helpful, and I greatly appreciate their efforts in this as well. So they actually reached out to Hytric Fleet Services, which they provided the attached quote for a new vehicle for a total price of $29,398. This was not included in the original FY22 budget. However, we do have the money in our budget to cover the cost due to personnel costs that we didn't have to accommodate over the past year or so. So with this, I am recommending the mayor and council to approve the purchase of a new 2022 Ford F-150 from Hytric Fleet Services as priced per the Howard County contract that's attached for your view. So with that, if you have any questions, let me know.
That's actually a really good price, because I mean, I'm looking at that. That's not a bad price at all for a truck. Council, what questions do you have, if any, or comments? Any opposition to that? I'm thinking they need a consensus. Janine, I'm gonna, will Vincent be utilizing the truck like Aaron does to pick up 68 signs that explode over the weekend?
That's not my understanding. It's more of a daily use vehicle to go out and do inspections or to perform daily duties.
Okay, and will he be carrying equipment or whatnot? Is that why a truck versus a sedan or a minivan?
We find that a truck is generally more versatile. As time goes on, we've been known to kind of switch vehicles around within town hall. So, you know, the town manager had given up his vehicle, which was the sedan, and we were utilizing that for our inspections. And then once that was no longer needed for the planning department, it's now gone to Melinda Adams, who does the stormwater utility. So we tend to flop cars around a little bit, and it's just a little bit more of a versatile vehicle. And it's easier to do this type of vehicle when you're doing inspections, or if, you know, for some reason I had to borrow it, or if somebody else had to borrow it and carry something, it's just a little bit easier in a pickup truck.
Fantastic. Councilman Goldsmith? On my screen, your hand's raised. Is your hand raised?
No, it wasn't, but I'll comment. Actually, I stopped by and spoke to Director Harrington this afternoon and suggested that we consider a bicycle. Think of the health benefits.
Right. You know, because that would be an easy commute into work and home, you know.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
You could also get a Vespa. I mean, he doesn't need a car. Get him a Vespa.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Make sure that there's safety lights on it. You know, going down 301 might get a little dangerous. So
we are a sustainable community now, so maybe an electric car or moped.
If one's available, sure.
In all seriousness, I have no problem moving forward, especially that price is very reasonable. My son has a truck, so I know, and that is very reasonable. Council, are we okay with moving forward with this so that we can see it again?
I support.
Yes. Good.
Good to go.
Yes.
Yep. All right. You can move forward with that. Thank you so much for presenting that to us.
Thank you.
Brings us to legislation, ordinance 21-29 for discussion and introduction.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Town Council, as you stated, for discussion and introduction, I will introduce initially, and Director Harrington's available to answer any questions you may have. She did do a presentation prior to the public, or during the public hearing, I believe last month. An ordinance concerning zoning map amendment and amended future land use map in the 2020 Comprehensive Plan, 14 West Hawthorne Drive, for the purpose of authorizing the rezoning 14th West Hawthorne Drive, adopting a new comprehensive rezoning map and related future land use map in the 2020 Comprehensive Plan for the town of La Plata and all matters related to said map.
All right, Council, we've talked about this several times. Any other questions, concerns, comments on this? I think this is pretty straightforward on there. So thank you for the introduction and consideration, and looking at the way the ordinance is presented. We will adopt it next week, should that be the will of the council, and then it will become effective November 10th. So thank you for bringing that to us once again. All right, moving on to road paving list. Always a great topic. Do I have Director Stahl here?
You do, Mayor. I'm here. And I just wanted to now, Kelly, can you pull up the road list that we submitted? Michelle said that you had a copy of that. Okay. On this first page, you will notice to bring you up on a couple of facts with respect to this. In working with Kevin and seeing as how we have an increase in highway user revenues this year, we are targeting to spend approximately $575,000 to $600,000 in HUR monies for the overlay program for this fall. As you know, from the September meeting, we approved a purchase order to reflect the using of the Calvert County contract through CA Bean, and that price was $85 a ton for overlay. And if you divide a roughly $600,000 by $85, you come up with 7,058 tons of asphalt that we will approximately be applying to the roads. Using that 7,058 tons and knowing that we, on a 2-inch overlay, get about 75 square feet per ton, we will be able to do approximately 529,000 square feet of asphalt. So what we do in this is we go through this list, and I literally go out and measure the streets, and we use our GIS system and actually measure and physically measure each street. And so I can tell you, for example, that in the first one, the Heritage Green Parkway, both sides from 301 to the second entrance of the shopping center, which is where we paved to the last time. We paved from Washington Avenue up to that second entrance. There is 49,358 square feet of asphalt. Leela Court, 35,174. Morris Drive, 57,023. The thing is that we're not totally prioritizing each one of these streets, but all the way down through Thrush Court is a total of 273,094 square feet. So that is those are our top priority to get those done. So that's 273,000 square feet of paving, and we will not be paving Calvert Street because Calvert Street is not a town street. Even though the rescue squad and the banks all go out through Calvert Street, I need to tell you that Calvert is not. Interestingly enough, a few years back, we tried to get all of the parties to sign off to make that a town street. The funny thing was we got the Mitchells to sign. John, Cherry, and Van signed off, and Hugh Mitchell and his family signed off. They own the Rock Church there, and the Mitchells own the other. But I couldn't get the rescue squad to sign, and I couldn't get the Posies to sign. So David wouldn't sign. So Calvert remains a private street, and so we will not be paving Calvert Street. So what I did then was we went in, and knowing that we now have prioritized 273,000 for those first streets all the way down to Thrush Court, we went in and said that Agricopia Drive is still in reasonable shape, and it's one of actually the newer neighborhoods in that area. So we are not going to prioritize that for paving this year. And then we are going to split what we've done between the remainder between Clark's Run and King's Grant. As you can see from the list on the second page, Wales Drive, both from 1029 to 1035, and then from Middlesex Court to Cornwall, which will pave about 2/3 of the way down Wales Drive. The remainder of Wales is still in pretty good shape. And then we will pave Cornwall from Wales Drive over to Leicester. So that of all of those three, there's 45,252 for the portion on Wales Drive and 26,486 square feet on Cornwall, for a total of 69,738 square feet in King's Grant. So when I add that 69,738 to the 273,094, I come up with 342,832, which means that we have a remainder of about 150,000 square feet, and we will target that in Clark's Run. We are prioritizing Butternut Court, Aspen Court, Chestnut Court, Dogwood Court, Scarlet Oak Drive, and Silver Linden from Clark's Run Road to the park. So the rest of those will not be a priority. That amounts to a little over 150,000. And with that note, that is the list that we believe we will be able to get to this year. All of the streets that you see are still a priority for us, and we want to work on those. But the reality was that when you look at that list that was provided to you, the total for that entire list was 1,063,000 square feet of asphalt. So we did have to pare that list back based on the budget that we have for our HUR dollars, and we have done that. And what I present to you tonight is just the list. And there may be some reasons why we can't do certain ones of them. We will work through this in an operational process, but it is something where we are doing more. We're doing about 50% more than what we've done in years past. And we will be working through this in a judicious process as we start working with CA Bean to do the fall paving. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much. I know that is always one of those people that those projects that people say, well, why not here? You know, why not there? And I know that you have a method to your madness.
And I must point out, Mayor, and I don't mean to speak over you, is that I know that, and I saw some comments. For instance, there was a comment over in Kings Grant of, you know, when are you going to finish the whole neighborhood? And people just don't understand. You know, the funding is limited, and what we try and do, to be perfectly honest, is we do try and spread it around the town. So we do some in each area, and you'll see that here is that we have clearly spread. We have some in Quailwood, we have some in Clark's Run, we have some in Kings Grant, we have some in the Old Town. You know, we have some and spread out throughout the Old Town, as well as up on Morris Drive, Leela Court. But, you know, we do it through that we make sure that we are taking care of streets in each of the councilmatic districts and not just doing it all in one councilman's district. That's not the way we do. We spread it out. It doesn't necessarily take care of an entire neighborhood at one time, but what it does is it spreads it fairly within the community. And we do try and target the streets that are in the worst condition. So it is a conditional analysis.
Absolutely. Councilman Goldsmith, I think that your hand really is raised this time.
Yes, it is. Just a couple questions. Do you also grind that old one down before you put the overlay on, or you overlay over top the existing?
We absolutely grind it down along the curb edges. Okay. So as long as the taper going across the road doesn't get too high, we try to build up the base of the road, but I don't build it up above the gutter pan. So we will go in and mill out 2 inches against the gutter pan. We try and taper it out to about 6 feet, which is the width of the mill. And so then we come back in and we overlay the entire street at a 2-inch overlay across the board. But what I don't like to do is build it up so that then you drop off in the gutter pan. We try to keep it even with the gutter pan. And I will not overlay the gutter pan so that you end up with less of a less depth to the butt curb. So we don't want to do that either.
Okay. We have walked Calmia several times already since we've been on the council and such. In Calmia, do you overlay or pave the parking spots, or are they owned by the actual homeowners?
I believe in this case they are actually owned by the homeowners in that situation. I believe that they're actually owned by the HOA, which is defunct, but it's not something that's the actual Calmia Court is the only thing that's actually owned by the town, and I did check that today. We will go in and mill to that concrete drain curb that goes between the spots, just like we've done in the past. So we will mill to that. So the road will have the appearance that it's literally that we've milled out everything, but we will taper it up in the center to create a steeper center to curb base at each on the overall paving section.
I recall about, I think roughly 10 years ago, when you were doing an area that had parking spaces detached from the road. It actually was separate two-car parking. The contractor allowed the owners of that lot to be able to have that paved and pay for it separately. Is that a capability this time?
Most likely not, Councilman Goldsmith. It is, especially working in there in Calmia and working in those tight spots and everything. When you go with a company the size of Bean, they do have large paving equipment, and paving parking spaces is very time consuming. If they could go in and pave them all, then I'm sure we could, if the HOA, for instance, we've done that in the past where, we'll work with the HOA to go in and pave certain sections where they can pave them all. But to be honest, going in and paving 2 spaces here or 2 spaces there and 1 space over here is very hard for a large paving unit to get in there with all the manpower and everything that's necessary. So we honestly, we target when we're paving to pave about 400 tons a day. So we like to put down about 400 tons of asphalt a day. So you can see that when you're trying to put down 7,000 tons of asphalt, that you're going to end up about 3 to 4 weeks of paving just for the town of La Plata's street overlay here for this. So it is going to be, a fairly lengthy project for us. We're going to be working at this for 3 to 4 weeks just to put down, the 7,000 tons that we're targeting. It is challenging. And so trying to take on all these additional spots would also be hard because it just draws the project out even farther.
Well, I know it wouldn't be feasible in Calmia because it's all one long piece. I was thinking maybe Cedar because they're individuals. Sections. And in Phoenix one as well.
And Bobby, is that something that, or Brent, that we would, before you guys do Calamia Court, and it may be a stretch too much right now, is to do what we did with Patuxent and assess their, put it on their tax assessment, get their permission and all of that, because there are, as Jim knows, some of those parking spaces have huge holes in them. And I know it's not ours, but if we did the work, you can't take public funding to do something private, but I don't know if that's even something that's been discussed.
Mayor, we will be fixing that one where we have the stormwater problem over there because we do have a stormwater easement over there. So we will be fixing that one when we go in there, and we will overlay that because we do have an easement through that area. But, going in and paving, I'm timing for this fall. It won't probably work too well in trying to get this as part of this fall's paving project. We could certainly work on that in the future. I think, our goal this year was to try and, show the community that we do care and that we're going to go in there and make a difference. And we felt that by doing both Cedar and Calmia at the same time, that would work well. We did not want to go out and start working on Caroline yet because Caroline, we're going to end up having to put another force main all the way down Caroline. So I didn't want to go doing any paving work on Caroline yet because we still have to run that additional force main up there for Horton. Eventually, we will overlay all of Caroline when that work is complete. So I think what you see here is a good list. You know, three of us have worked on this with Jeff and Donnie and myself. We really have put a lot of time into going through these and looking at each road and trying to come up with a, you know, what I think is a good balanced list. Going back in here and putting the measurements and really looking at what we can push, I think is, you know, is always a challenge every year. But I think this is a good plan. And I would just throw out there again on the first page, it would be no to Culvert Street, no to Agricopia Drive, no to Clark's Run Road, and no to Silver Linden from Clark's Run Road to Redwood Circle. On the second page, it would be no to River Birch, Redwood Circle, Persimmon Court, and Alder Court. Yes to Wales Drive, yes to Cornwall. And then the walking path at Redwood Lake, we will do that with some parks money. And then the entrance to Public Works will be postponed. So,
Okay. Councilman Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Stoll. I know this is a labor-intensive process to to pave all the roads and use the HRR funds. And you already answered a comment or question I had, and that you are using the town's GIS system. So I'm glad that we're leveraging that asset for us. Two quick questions, and this is a theoretical question. Has the town ever paved more in excess of HUR funds?
The answer in my history has been yes. When the HUR dollars fell
right
to you know, the ridiculously low amounts in some previously bad times. One year we only got $17,000 in HUR funds because the state robbed the Transportation Trust Fund to solve budgetary issues. But the answer has been historically, yes, we have. If you're thinking about, you know, I have to tell you, one of my personal concerns when you heard the gentleman, Mr. Himmler, make the presentation on this money, I think one of the challenges we're going to have is being able to spend that money in a, you know, in a time frame that was, you know, assumed by this funding, because the larger projects take so long to not only design, but also to get implemented. And so I think we're going to be really struggling to look for some projects. And if we could do some things, you know, partnering, you know, the things that you brought up, and even doing more paving, if we could somehow justify, you know, paving where we could throw more money out here to get some of this money spent, I think would be very good, because I really think, you know, when you have to spend the money by December 31st of 24, you know, that's literally 3 years away. And, you know, big projects take a year and a half to design. And when you have to have all this money spent, it can be a challenge trying to get it all spent and trying to get everything built in there. So we're going to be looking for things all the time, like additional paving, to be able to do this.
And the other question that you alluded to, and maybe for future consideration, is because I've been asked in prior years by folks, well, how does the town figure out what is the priority list? I mean, how do you figure out what the priority list is? And so the question that somebody asked you, well, why don't you finish paving our neighborhood? I think, at least for me, suggest that maybe in the future, and again, not to create more work for the sake of it, but perhaps some way of just providing a brief overview of the process you and your staff go through to prioritize these kinds of projects. I think that would help again, educate our citizens, and they may or may not agree, but at least they'll have some transparency as to the process. That's all. Something in the future to think about. That's all.
Well, I will say this, we rank all the roads as a 1, a 2, or a 3. A 1 means that we would pave the road within the next 2 years. And to be perfectly honest, the ones that you see on this list are the ones. They're the ones. And so we would like to pave all of the roads that you see on this list in the next 2 years. 2s are roads that we need to pave 2 to 5 years out. And so we rank them and we look at those as far as 2 to 5 years out. And then 3s are anything 5 years and beyond, roads that we've recently paved, roads that are new to our inventory, that kind of thing. To be honest, the bulk of the roads in La Plata are 3s. And so, you know, a lot of people see surface cracking and things like that and believe that there's, you know, that road needs to be repaved and that. You know, I am honestly very proud of the town of La Plata. We have taken every dollar that that we get in highway user revenue, and we put it into asphalt and paving. We do not fund positions. We do not fund trucks. We do not fund any other infrastructure other than putting that money back into asphalt and repaving. And I think La Plata's been extremely good about that. Most.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't disagree with that, and this, you know, I'm just suggesting that the citizens ought to know that. Maybe the citizens could know that. That's all.
Okay.
It's just a way to, so they understand what you just said to me is a great summary of how you rate them, 1, 2, and 3. And it's based upon because they have potholes or the thickness or whatever you do. Just a brief 2 or 3 paragraph to me would help educate our citizens as to what you go through and how you spend very effectively state funds and how they've gone up and down. I just think that's a great start to do a brief summary of how you do it.
Absolutely.
That would go a long way. Again, not everybody's going to agree, but at least it's out there, and at least now we say this is how we do it.
Right.
And then just one final comment, and I know the mayor already knows this, and I'm not trying to steal her thunder, but the mayor is on MML Board of Directors, and she's also on the Legislative Committee. And I believe at last week's conference, that's the top legislative priority for MML is to keep that funding stream going for HUR funding. So thanks a lot for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any other comments on the paving schedule? All right. Thank you very much. We will move on to 4.2, invitation from Charles County government to attend a ceremony for National First Responders Day. And then Matt, I'm actually going to have you give us a little information as well after. I think Brent is probably going to present this and give us a little information about the Chamber of Commerce dinner, if you know anything on that one. I think you do. Mr. Manuel?
Yeah, you're talking about the first responders dinner?
This one is the invitation from Charles County government.
I don't think I've seen that. Beg your pardon.
Okay, how about this? It was at 9, but now it's at 1 o'clock at the flagpoles. And I think all council has responded that they will be in attendance if they can. So, there was, I believe Michelle did write up a proclamation, which all of us should have reviewed. I did not have any comments on that. I thought it was well done. So we will be participating. I have let them know that we would like to present as well. Councilman Trollinger, could you let the council know about the dinner for the first responders? Do you know about that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Before I did. It looks like Councilwoman Bryant Ward raised her hand, so I don't want to cut her off.
No worries. I didn't see the proclamation, Mayor.
Oh, I will make sure that it is sent out to you guys.
Okay, I got it. I'm not sure. Not sure where else it was, but yeah. So I am in a volunteer role helping out the Charles County Chamber of Commerce, and what we're trying to put together is kind of at least a first in a long time, very, very long time, appreciation dinner for first responders in Charles County. It's on November 10th. I'm going to be sending you all a copy of the letter that I sent to the mayor. It's an appreciation dinner at the Charles County Fairgrounds from 6 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. And this is unlike a lot of the events that we go to, because one of the stipulations as far as involvement goes with the event is that there will be no politicians speaking, which I can appreciate very much. So this is all about the first responders. We've been asked by the Chamber of Commerce to supply a proclamation, which will be displayed at the event. But this is primarily to highlight amongst the various groups and organizations in our county that do a fantastic job, the Charles County Sheriff's Office, the Plata Police Department, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, in such a way that they're going to have a bulletin to take home with pictures, biographical information, and who's nominating them. And we want this to be an annual event where they can feel the love within the community and not just hear politicians speak for an inordinate amount of time, and then we walk away and say we only got a little bit of time with the first responders. So it's all about them. And in the letter, it's kind of specific that we want them to know that the town of La Plata essentially cares about them, appreciates what they do, but we're not going to talk all night about it. We're going to let them be presenters and be appreciated. So we've already had a number of officials say that they're going to be in attendance or that they've given their support at the county, as well as some of our delegates have already reached out and told us that they're going to support it. So I wanted to make you aware. Again, I'll send you a copy of the letter I sent to the mayor on behalf of the chamber tonight. I will say that the Chamber of Commerce is asking for the politicians to pay their way, their $50, because they're not going to charge any first responder, I believe, or their family to go to the event. It's to encourage them to be honored, truly honored, throughout the evening. So I'm excited about it, and I will disclose my law firm is supporting it as a sponsor, but I'm excited about it because there aren't a lot of events that just focus on those that are honored, and we want to do that. So thanks for letting me talk about that, Mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it, either online or offline.
Thank you for that. And let's make sure we RSVP, and we'll send it to Michelle or Brent so that we can get the tickets. And also, and I love how the community is coming together on that. To piggyback on the first responders, Lowe's has asked me to kind of promote theirs, that, usually the military gets 10% all the time at Lowe's. Well, they're doing from October 22nd to the October 28th, 10% off on anything at Lowe's for the first responders. And we're talking about police, fighters, nurses, doctors, EMTs, all that there. So they are very much involved in the community, and they're always giving back. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew about that too. And it starts on the 22nd. So if you're a first responder, go shop at Lowe's in La Plata, local. All right, anything else with that? And thank you for that, Matt, I appreciate it. All right, future work session topics.
Madam Mayor, if I could go back under matters of information, I did want to bring to the council's attention that we still do have 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. I believe it's one is a member and one is a alternate, and we also are trying to fill a vacancy on the Board of Appeals. So if everyone could keep that in mind, and I know that we may have an application that needs to move forward with the Board of Appeals, so we will need that more member as soon as possible, if I may say. So if you know of anyone that's interested, just have them reach out to probably myself under current operational. Because of Danielle's absence, we will try to move that forward as far as.
I believe we may have an interview on Friday, or
Okay,
confirming.
great.
We have the interview for Board of Appeals on Friday. And Councilwoman Bryant Ward.
And we also have 2 applicants for the Planning Commission that we will be interviewing.
Great.
So we are moving along. So thank you all for your hard work. I know that was Councilwoman Bryant Ward really talking up both the Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals. Councilman Jenkins, did you have something to add?
Yes, Mayor. And again, I'm not. Are you aware that the county has filled their Economic Development Director position?
Yes, I saw that with
Okay.
Kelly Slagle.
Yes,
That
right.
she starts on November 15th. So that
Right.
is, and that is someone that we do want to partner with. As I had met with Darrell every other month to make sure that we were well aware of what was going on and make sure that the love flows down to La Plata a little bit. So
Right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Brent, do you still have your hand raised? I don't know. My computer's going a little bit crazy.
I'm sure I do. I apologize, but I will
No,
go to
that's
future
okay.
session topics if you would like.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we have representatives from Senator Cardin's office that'll be with us on November 9th. We could be in a position on the Southwest Quadrant Pump Station. Bids are due the end of October for the 9th. Also, Thanksgiving holiday schedule. We'll look at as the schedule lays out to see if you guys want to maybe consolidate meetings to avoid having a meeting the week of Thanksgiving with some people's travel schedules. And also there's been a request for a workflow analysis or discussion between staff, mayor, and council. So those are the items we have thus far for November 9th, and we're still filling out the November work session schedule as well as the business meeting for November.
And I was remiss and we're going to pop back to matters of information. Council, don't forget tomorrow your top 10 goals are due. So if you haven't looked at that, it's going to be a late night for you. Jim looks confused. It's in your email. You were absent on that one. You get the pass. Saturday, we've got the Clark's run 5K at 1 o'clock. And then the torch run is on Thursday. They're starting at 10 o'clock. You can be there at 9:45. And lastly, there is a proclamation, I believe the proclamation 4 that I just sent you that has been, I think it's already printed, is ready for signature if and when you arrive at Town Hall. All right, that's what I have. So that brings us to public forum. If there's anybody who would like to speak, we ask you to state your name, your address, whether you're in the incorporated town limits, and please limit it to 3 minutes if possible. Do I have anyone who would like to speak this evening? Mr. Flatley, I see your hand raised.
Mayor James, Town Council, I'd like to introduce the Director of the American Legion Riders from Post 82, Jamie Zayas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Town Council. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I wanted to express our appreciation for not only the town, the mayor, the town council, but a number of the town employees that helped us in June during our Gold Star Legacy Run. That is one of our bigger fundraisers for the year as the American Legion Riders, where we bring in riders from all over the state of Maryland. And with the help of the town council and the mayor and the employees, and then all of the businesses here in La Plata, We have put La Plata on the map so that you can pretty much go to any American Legion post in the state of Maryland and they know about town of La Plata. We have raised the bar during this fundraiser. This year, post 82, we raised $11,000 that we donated to this. The ride overall for that weekend raised over $60,000. I know the mayor and a couple of the council members were at our dinner where we were presenting the checks, and we do appreciate that. But I would like to take this opportunity to recognize some of the employees of the town of La Plata that made this such a special event for us. For the public works staff who placed flags along Charles Street, Jeff Garner, David Swan, and Thomas Yates did an awesome job when we came off of 488 and turned onto Route 6 coming down through the town of La Plata. It was just outstanding. The town, the businesses that put some things on their marquees to welcome us into town was just unbelievable. I'd like to thank the town of La Plata police officers that escort us into town and out of La Plata on Saturday morning. Sergeant Robert Bagley, Sergeant Jason Posey, Corporal Ricky Fields, Corporal Thomas Johnson, PFC David Clements, Parole Officer Brendan Smith, Parole Officer Logan Warren, and Parole Officer Damian Graham. We'd like to present them all with letters of appreciation, certificates of appreciation. We have one here for the La Plata Police Department, and this one to my left is for Jeff Gardner, Director of Public Works, but we have one for each of the names that I just called. And Madam Mayor, with you, the outstanding support that you've given us, and I must say that there are Legion riders across the state of Maryland that definitely know who the mayor of La Plata is. And Madam Mayor, we'd like to give you this certificate of appreciation. We appreciate all the support that you have given us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, City Council.
Thank you so much. And you know, it's my absolute honor. And when you guys let me ride that motorcycle last year, well, you know, that was awesome. And we didn't crash and they didn't go fast. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for raising funds for the Gold families. I appreciate it. As a military wife, it is very important to me as well. And you guys do an awesome job. So thank you for recognizing our incredible staff. They do it because they love it as well. So thank you very much. And our council that showed up first time, that majority of ours, and we've got 3 that are military members. So it is very special to us. So thank you. It's always my pleasure to see you as well, and hope to see you in person soon.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Have a good evening. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Oh, Mr. Flatley, did you raise your hand again?
Yeah, on behalf of the La Plata Business Association and personally, I just wanted to offer our support to the changes that were proposed earlier this evening regarding bringing staff opportunity into the DRB process. I don't have a prepared message to give. I just want to say we've looked at it as a association. I sent out to a number of the businesses, and we got comments back that we provided. And I just want to say that I think what Director Harrington is doing is awesome. I think she's doing a great job for the town. And I think that this will help speed the process up considerably in a number of areas. And it will take some of the load off of town council and the DRB and the planning commission to be able to get work done a little bit faster and a little bit easier across the board. So just wanted to offer our support for that, and glad to hear that you were all speaking in favor of, and the questions you asked were fantastic. I think we've got a good process headed forward. So thank you.
Thank you for that, those words of encouragement and support, and thank you for sending that out, because we are a stronger town because of our businesses, and we do like the collaboration is the word of the evening, and we do appreciate you collaborating with the town so that we're all on the same page. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Come on.
Matt, your turn.
Come on, Matt.
I second.
All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, now go do your homework. Great meeting tonight. Thank you so much. right.
Thank you, staff.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you, Kelly.
Manuel.